The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences. These guys can't go about 3 seconds without saying a swear, so, listener discretion is advised.
I don't know about everybody else, but I like my rays untraced, thank you.
You like your rays freeform.
I do. I like them unbound.
Unbound rays. That's going to be the thing for the next generation.
Yeah, man. I'm ahead of the curve.
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, a proud member of the Geekly Grind Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ink and Paint Club podcast. My name is JD. Kyle has been sent on a secret mission to space, so he will not be with us today. But Matt's here.
I wish I could make a wish and bring Kyle back.
Me too. I'd use that. Come back to us, Kyle. We miss you. And this week we are talking about Sony Animation's latest film, Wish Dragon, ported directly to Netflix for your viewing pleasure. This is a movie that I did not really know about until the internet told me about 3 days ago that it existed.
I had been, I'd been hearing about it off and on. The movie was originally supposed to come out in 2019. And then it got moved. It got moved to 2020, and then COVID happened, and then it got moved to 2021. The movie's been out in China since January, and so it's now just having, it came out on Netflix I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago or something.
Yeah, from when we're recording this anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd seen it here and there. I'd seen the character designs and stuff, and I didn't think much of it. I just kind of assumed it was another one of those. There was, because it came out along the same time. Early in the movie, it had Raya and the Last Dragon, and then we have Wish Dragon, and it's always weird when certain movies come out and they'll have other movies that come out around that same time that don't necessarily share, or sometimes they might share similar plot, but sometimes they'll just share similar themes. And I don't know, dragons seem to be the big, at least Eastern dragons, of course, not How to Train Your Dragon with
I was just gonna say this completes the pandering to the East Asian market trilogy.
Well, I mean, you could, as far as
look, man. In less than 12 months, we have Over the Moon, Raya and the Last Dragon, and this. I
would say it's
very obvious ploys to the East Asian market, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I'm just
I would say Raya and the Last Dragon, yes, even though that movie turned out pretty good in my opinion. I would say for Over the Moon and this movie, Over the Moon also having come out on Netflix in October, but also done by Sony Pictures, I believe. I don't know if they share any other production partners. I know Tencent's a producer on Wish Dragon, which
it sure is.
I know they're mostly known for doing video games and stuff, and I always hear that they're a terrible company
a big
or whatever.
Chinese conglomerate.
As far as Over the Moon and Wish Dragon go, I feel like because predominantly the movies are being made and produced and casting, from Asian markets and stuff, I wouldn't say they're necessarily pandering. I would just say that they are just.
I just think it's funny that so many very obviously I'd say designed for an East Asian market have come out so close to each other. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just think it's funny that so many came out so close together.
Right. Well, I mean, and it's just these two that have made their way onto Netflix and are in English. It's I'm sure there's tons of other movies that come out like these, all the time over. But,
American-made movies, I guess.
That's the thing. That's the thing, though. Is I'm saying is how much of these two movies at least are American-made. For Raya and the Last Dragon, yeah, sure, but I think these two specifically, I would say that there's probably more.
Well, I think at least for this, it was done by Sony Animation. It's just there's a lot of funding from these Chinese
but Sony's a Japanese company, so there's a lot of if you're talking about Asian specific, or are you talking just Chinese specific?
But Sony Pictures Animation is American.
Is it?
Pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Yes, their headquarters is in Culver City.
Oh, okay. Well, fuck me then, I guess. Well, you know how that gets a little bit confusing. So Sony is like a Japanese company.
It is, but you know how fucking PlayStation has its own like American and Japan branches.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Okay. But yeah, as far as all the other production companies that are at least involved in this one, it seemed like it was all predominantly Asian. I don't know, specifically Chinese, but you know.
Yeah. So I guess we can just get this out of the way. This movie is painfully Aladdin. So much that the main character's second wish is to be a prince.
A princeling.
It's a prince, man. Don't argue semantics with me.
No. He does specifically, and they go into it in the movie. The dragon does misinterpret that as a prince, and he does do the whole like wearing the fancy clothes and have like the carriage and everything else. It's like no, he says princeling. It's like just wearing a fancy suit with a car. It's like the modern interpretation of that, I guess. But
but like it's thematically the same thing, and basically this movie is 90% Aladdin if the genie was a huge asshole.
Well, I will also say that the genie in this movie ties a lot more into the plot than the genie does in Aladdin.
Yeah.
There's a lot more backstory for the dragon's name is Long. There's a lot more backstory and like sort of connective tissue between that element of the movie and the sort of the story between like the humans and everything in this than there is in Aladdin. With the genie's character, you never hear anything really about
no
about his past.
I guess in that
anything.
respect, I do enjoy that. Like we do get backstory about like the Wish Dragon, like how he became a dragon, why he does what he has to do, and kind of why he's a gigantic asshole.
Yeah. So this movie was written and directed by Chris Applehans, and this is a first-time directing feature. First-time directing, I think, in general. He's worked, of course, in other mediums. He's mostly known for doing independent artwork and for illustrating some children's books. But he has worked on other films before. He worked in the art department for Monster House, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Princess and the Frog, Coraline, Puss in Boots, Rise of the Guardians, and the first Angry Birds movie. And then, there's some other ones in there, too. Those are just the ones that I felt worth noting. Apparently, he's already got another job lined up with Sony, because I guess he's supposed to be one of the co-directors on K-pop Demon Hunters, which I remember hearing about when it got announced.
Okay.
Which I guess is another one of those. And that's the other thing, too, is like, you could say pandering and all that, but I mean, if they keep on going with it and they're still releasing a lot of movies that do appeal to the Asian market, like, when does it turn from being pandering and turning into, pandering and representation, it's a little hard to,
I say it mostly because I know how big the Chinese market is to Hollywood. And this is not even a new thing where we make things specifically to cater to them. I mean, hell, there's an entire extra scene in Iron Man 3 that is specific to China.
You know what? Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I think there's some bits with Olivia Munn in that movie, and they replaced it with like an actual news anchor or something.
And it's like, I think a doctor in the movie is replaced with a a famous Chinese actress, and I think they like advertise like a Chinese drink or something.
Okay.
But the scene was specifically inserted for the Chinese version of the movie.
I'm not going to deny that there's absolutely movies being made out there to appeal to those markets, but I feel like to say that every single one is or isn't or whatever, it's kind of hard. I mean, we don't work in the industry; we just kind of have to go off of what we hear.
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what the production of this. I'm just going to say this is probably like the whitest version of China I've ever seen. Like, this is what white people think China is.
In what way?
I don't know. It just seems very bland. Like, I feel like I've seen like bits of like Chinese animation of like how they depict China, and it's like way more like involved, but I feel like, I don't know, the Shanghai in this depicted in here, it's just like it's kind of bland. It just seems like it's kind of just like any other city, I guess. I mean, obviously you got like kind of the slums and stuff like that, but you know, I just like was not invested in the environment that they were presenting.
Would you say that Over the Moon did it better?
Yes, but I can only. Well, yeah, I guess they do. They both bring in fantastical elements. I definitely think that Over the Moon did it better, and especially because they were like the way they showed like those older villages in Over the Moon. I felt like that felt very authentic. I'm sure this movie is very authentic to like actual modern day Shanghai, but I don't know. It is just a big modern city. To me, it did not really stick out too much.
Sure. Well, and I guess it kind of works in that regard because when you start factoring all the Wish Dragon stuff in there, it makes it pop a bit more than, you know.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, this movie is more or less Aladdin. It just involves this this student named Din. He's supposed to be going to college, but he's, you know, he and his mom are poor and kind of live in the slums. He's having to work all like these extra side jobs just to afford some nice things. But he is chosen by a god who disguises himself as a crazy old man.
Yeah.
The god decides he is pure of heart and gives him a magic teapot, which inside houses the Wish Dragon Long, who is revealed through the movie that he was once a powerful lord,
or like emperor or whatever.
Yeah, something like that, like 1,000 years ago. But he was basically just like coveted material things over like relationships and his family and stuff. So the gods sent him back as a wish dragon to fucking learn the meaning of life.
He's got to serve 10 masters.
Yeah, and Din, the kid that we're following through this is his last master, and Long is basically just trying to hurry him along because it's like, well, once I get through my 10 masters, I get to go back to heaven, and they're gonna have a big party for me, and it's gonna be awesome. So we just need to like wrap this up.
Yeah. As far as the Aladdin comparisons go, like, yeah, you can say, you know, it definitely takes a lot of influence from it, but would you say that it's a good movie? Did you enjoy it? Is it a good? Right. Is it a good ripoff of Aladdin? Basically,
I will say this movie is just okay. This is a movie that like I am perfectly fine that it is on Netflix.
Yeah.
It like I'm not mad I watched it, but it's definitely not a movie I plan to watch again anytime soon.
I feel like, yeah, if. Of course, and it would be an entirely different movie if Long was not in it, but I feel like the bits with Long are definitely, you know, the best parts of the movie. I think, you know, just as far as having a genie-like character who is just like a dick and trying to hurry stuff along.
It's 90 minutes of John Cho being a dick.
Yeah, 90 minutes of Jackie Chan being a dick. I'm assuming if you're watching the Mandarin version. If you're watching one of the Mandarin versions of it, because yeah, Jackie Chan helped produce the movie and does voice work in that version of the movie, but does not voice in the English version, which is not totally unusual because I think he's done voice work for other animations before that weren't like in the American version. So, like I know, like in Mulan. And I think Kung Fu Panda, right?
Yeah, I think so.
No, you know what it was? I don't think he voiced anyone in Mulan. I think they put out the Mandarin version of. I think he worked on the Mandarin version of the soundtrack or something. Because I know very distinctly. There's a video on YouTube of him doing "Make a Man Out of You."
Yeah, he does that version.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
But yeah, so we don't get Jackie Chan in the English dub, but we do get future Spike Spiegel John Cho, which I feel like he puts in a pretty good performance. And it's funny because I think his first voice role for animation was Over the Moon. I think he voices the father in that movie. As small a part as that is, it's still another it's still another connection to another Sony produced Netflix original, like a very heavily Asian influenced movie. Like,
yeah. Honestly, I didn't recognize it was John Cho at first. Just like because he was playing such a deep voiced asshole. Like, I feel like John Cho is mostly kind of a nice guy, at least in most of the things I've seen him in.
Right.
But I feel like his voice was a little deeper. Like, I was almost getting like some Ryan Reynolds vibes off of him.
Well, I mean, he's probably a bit older than some of the other stuff you've seen him in too. So
yeah, true. But
like, I was trying to remember the last live action role I've seen him in. I was trying to think probably Harold and Kumar or something.
Star Trek, I guess.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Star Trek.
Yeah.
He plays Mr. Sulu.
He sure does. I like those movies. I haven't seen the last one, though.
I've only seen the first reboot, and I enjoyed it fine enough. I feel like I do want to revisit, or I guess watch the other two for the first time, just because I've been on a big Star Trek kick lately. So we were just talking about Star Trek right before we recorded. So
look, look. I'm just say this. I have never seen Wrath of Khan, so I did not get upset when they essentially remade it for the second reboot movie, and I thought that movie was okay.
It's got Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, that guy. It's got the Grinch in it.
It's Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that guy.
I feel like I do have to bring it up just because I thought it was a fun little connection. I was just trying to look for things to bring up about the film. Like, I try to go like on TV tropes and IMDb, like in the trivia sections, just to, fun little notes. Apparently, the voice actors for Din's mom and for the younger version of Din that we see early in the movie, that's Constance Wu and Ian Chen. They also played mother and son on the show Fresh Off the Boat.
No.
So that's a fun little, I guess, bit of casting there as like a relation to that.
That's funny.
Yeah, just thought it was worth noting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's some elements about this movie that are still pretty charming. Like I said, it's been a while since I've watched Aladdin, so I get that it's definitely taking a lot of inspiration from that, just on the idea of having a genie-esque being in your possession and getting the wishes and wishing for wealth to try to impress a girl, that sort of thing. But I feel like there's still little bits of character here and there that definitely make it stand out.
I will give this movie credit, because I do enjoy that, like, by the end of this movie, Din is kind of in a dark place about, like, the girl I like, will only really like me if, because society has, like, said that, like, oh, she can't be with a poor person. So he's like, fine, you know what? Let's just do the last wish. We'll do the one thing you've been saying this entire time. Just give me the giant pile of gold and we'll be done with this. And I like that Long just is like, look, I'll give it to you, but you need to I need to show you some shit first.
This is my tragic backstory.
Yeah, here's my tragic backstory. Here's why you shouldn't make that wish.
Yeah.
Which I kind of enjoyed that, like, he's like, you know what? I understand where you're coming from, but, like, hold up a sec.
Yeah, because that would be like in Aladdin if, like, the genie before, he makes, Aladdin's final wish or something. He's just like, okay, listen, before I make this final wish, like, here's my tragic backstory. I used to be like a pimp or something, like, and I only learned the value of human life after serving this many people for my lamp or something, It's
right.
not so not exactly like that. Maybe I over-exaggerate a little bit, but, I do think that having more backstory for the genie in this movie definitely sets it apart.
Jeremy Snow here, owner and editor-in-chief of The Geekly Grind. I'm interrupting your awesome, regularly scheduled programming to ensure that you know about our Geekly Grind podcast network, of which this show is a treasured member of. If you haven't had a chance to check out our site, you can do so at www.thegeeklygrind.com, and while you're there, check out the other members of our steadily growing podcast family, including the anime-centric Blake and Spencer Get Jumped, discovering new heroes and comic book keepers with Chris and Lance, exploring the vast universe of geekdom with Geeksploration, or of course appreciating animation's finer details with the Ink and Paint Club. Escape your weekly grind at The Geekly Grind.
And I did enjoy the friendship between Din and Lena. It was cute. I liked how they were like, their parents were too busy for them as little kids, so they kind of like formed a little friendship, and then the dad got an opportunity and had to move away from the slums, and then she grew up to be like this famous model, I guess.
Yeah, and see, that's the other thing that sets it apart too, is because, in Aladdin, I mean, Aladdin and Jasmine didn't know each other before, Aladdin started trying to get her attention and stuff. It was like,
right,
Lena and Din, were childhood friends, and it was one of them moved away and was very sad, and he just wanted to connect with his his old friend, and I feel like, yeah, there's a very good reason for having the setup that they have in this one,
Yeah. I will say, and partially this is from my wife's influences, I did not feel bad for Lena in the slightest during her inner turmoil.
Yeah.
She's like my dad doesn't pay attention to me, but I have literally everything I could ever need, every material need I could need in my life at my fingertips at any given moment.
That's the thing, is that's the one thing that wealth can't afford her, is time with her dad.
Look, I'm just like, coming from this as a broke ass bitch perspective.
I'm a broke ass bitch too. I still understand where they're coming from.
If I was disgustingly rich, I could deal with some neglect from my parents.
Just a little bit.
That might mean saying more about my relationship with my parents. But no, I just I just do not. Anytime there's a plot point in the movie where it's like a very affluent person is just like, oh, I have all the money in the world, but I still have these issues about whatever. I cannot connect to that at all, because it's like, look, man, you give me like a fraction of what you got and I'm set for life.
Yeah.
Fucking whine to me about your first world problems.
I thought
real world problems over here.
I thought it was very funny that basically, like, in the first minute of the movie, it shows the point of view of Long, like, being turned into the Wish Dragon, but just the idea that, like, he pops into heaven and gets a guitar soloed away into a teacup, like.
And I do like because they show you, like, it's a first person's perspective when they show you the first time. I like that they do, when he does his actual backstory, you actually get to see the entirety of that scene from like a third person perspective, so you can like really get an idea of like how it actually went down.
Yeah.
There's that was cool.
Just, and like I was mentioning, how there's like a bunch of little moments of funny instances in the movie. There's a bit where it's just showing Din and Lena just being kids and hanging out together, and there's the bit where they raise a pet chick into a full grown chicken, and then it dies and they bury it, and they're sad, and like as they're mourning the grave, they're like eating fried chicken. Like,
well, they're eating the chicken.
Yeah, they're eating. They're eating.
Well, it's because it's funny when they have the grave for the chicken, but all they do is bury some feathers. It's like, because they ate the chicken.
Which
the movie tells you it was Lena's idea.
Yeah,
to eat the chicken.
There's that whole scene where Long and Din are in traffic, and there's just a bit with like the dude next to him like honking, and like if I can see Long like like messing with the guy, but it's like from it's showing the point of view where like because only the person that's holding the teacup can see Long. So, like, seeing him mess with, like, the environment. And that's the whole thing throughout the whole movie, is seeing him mess with the environment and, like, not seeing, like, who the perpetrator is.
I have some issues with that. Like, okay, I buy that, like, okay, whoever has possession of the teapot can see the dragon. I get that. I think it's weird that the basically that just makes the dragon invisible to everybody else, but he's still physically there.
Yeah. Because there's even the whole bit at the near the end of the movie where it's Din and the what would be considered the main antagonist in the movie fighting on the Wish Dragon, and like,
which I have some words about the main bad guy in this, but we'll get to that.
Right. But yeah, so Long can't be perceived by anyone, but he does still affect the environment, and so stuff just seems to be like moving on its own or that sort of thing. But like I said, specifically for that traffic scene, it's very funny. Like, him messing with like the driver, like, or even just them showing like, everyone's like stuck in traffic and like, people are pulling out like televisions or pulling out like, mahjong boards or like, pulling out whole, pots of soup. Like,
right.
It's very funny.
Speaking of mahjong, there is a point in this movie where like someone offhandedly is playing like mahjong in the background, and someone like makes a chess reference to it, and it's like, that is not the game they're playing. Fucking white people.
Localization,
Don't localize to me. I can understand Chinese things. Let me experience the culture. Don't water it down for me.
One of the other bits that I thought fun visual gags is when Din and Lena are running away from the henchmen that are sent after to get the teapot, and like they end up in the parade like with the dragon floats, and like how they're just sort of like fighting each other, and how there's the bit where like the floats are like pushed up against each other and they're like trying to kick each other, and it just looks like they're making out because it looks like tongues or something, like, and the whole audience is just like, yeah, like,
Well, then they get a bunch of like oil and they can shoot out the thing's mouth, so it looks like the dragon's throwing up. It's gross.
The other thing that's persistent through the movie that I could definitely relate to is Long's love of shrimp chips,
which contain no shrimp.
Yeah, I think I've always wondered about them myself. There's always like shrimp flavored things, but I always wondered, like, like as far as the flavor profile goes, they're kind of there, but not, it's not as.
Do you enjoy shrimp chips, Matt?
I grew up on shrimp chips, man.
All right.
Not like the ones that are actually shaped like chips, more like the ones that are like they're like the twisty. They're kind of like they're shaped like Fritos Twists, kind of. Those types of shrimp chips. I can't remember the brand that is, but it's like in a pink bag. But yeah, I grew up like eating that stuff, so I could definitely relate to the love of shrimp chips.
Look, I like shrimp to a degree. Like, I'll down some popcorn shrimp like nobody's business, but I just don't think shrimp flavored potato chips would taste good.
Well, it's not potato chips. It's like they're I was gonna say corn chips, but I'm not even entirely certain they are. They're not rice chips? I don't know. I'm actually not certain. All I know is that there's not actual shrimp in it, apparently, but they still taste very good.
All right, then. I like that Long was mad that there's no shrimp chips in heaven.
Yeah.
Also there's no air conditioning, apparently.
Yeah, I guess. That's a reason enough to get sent back down to Earth to serve another 10 masters. I know, fucking AC here.
I'm not going up to heaven if there's no air conditioning.
Yeah, God, it'd be unbearable.
Heaven's gonna be humid as fuck. So I want to talk about the henchmen in this.
Yeah.
My main issue is with the main henchman. I guess his name is Pockets.
I don't think they ever say like his name or his nickname at all in the movie. I only found out that name on Wikipedia.
It's probably just the credits, but
or the credits. Yeah.
Like literally, this guy only fights with his legs. He's pulling a fucking Sanji from One Piece.
No, it's fucking comical. It reminded me of did you ever watch Austin Powers Goldmember?
Yeah.
So there's the bits in there where Goldmember is like, and they do the same exact type of shots where like it shoots from the chest up, and like there's just legs coming up from the bottom of the screen and just fucking moving around, like the same exact thing. It was so funny to me.
I did like that they cut down and they're like, how the fuck are you doing it? It's just one of the other guys holding him up.
Yeah.
But one problem is that like I thought that was really cool that like, oh, he's just like he's a guy and he like doesn't use his hands. Like his hands are always in his pockets. He only does kicks and like has really actually interesting choreography with his footwork. But like you're expecting like, oh, if he ever pulls his hands out, it like, oh, something's got to be up with his hands, like they're burned or like he's something is up with his hands. Towards the end of the movie, no, he just pulls them out. He's like, okay, I'm done playing with you. I'm just gonna pull my hands out and we're gonna fight with my whole body now.
Listen, shit got real and he needed to use 100% of his ability. I think that's the whole idea behind that.
I guess, but it's just like, this seemed like such an interesting character quirk that like it just like went nowhere.
Well, and I can kind of see why they wanted to especially kind of mark the occasion where he gets a hold of of Long, and like, you know, he's making his wishes, and one of the things that he wishes for is like Midas's touch, I guess, where he has a gold hand, and anything that he touches turns to gold, and so that was, you know, I guess that was the other reason for that, you know, him not using his hands.
The second he wishes for that, you know how it's going to backfire on him.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Like how it did in the original fucking Midas Touch
exactly.
tale, like.
You can't, like, how are you ever gonna have the gold hand that turns everything gold and never touch yourself with it?
Yeah, it's a bad idea. That's the whole reason why that tale exists, is to tell you why, if you ever get any wishes, don't ever wish to be able to just whatever you touch turns to gold, because you will turn your family into gold. Everything you ever try to eat will get turned into gold. You will starve to death, or you will end up touching yourself.
I guess as long as he doesn't use the gold hand. You put a glove on it, but then the glove's going to turn gold.
Yeah, I'm actually not entirely certain. I guess in the original tale, I think it might have been both of his hands. So
I think in this one he just has one gold hand.
Yeah,
he turns a whole van gold.
Yeah, he was starting to touch the street. I was wondering if we we're going to get like a panning shot of like the whole bridge like turning gold or something, but I don't think we ever saw anything like that.
Yeah, but like where does the gold encompassing end? When he touches something.
I will say, though, that made for a very interesting visual, remarking, you know, earlier when we said, like, you know, you can't see Long unless you're holding the teapot, and so that in that bit of the movie, Din is not holding the teapot, and he's about to get punched by Pockets and turned into gold, but then there's a force in the way, and it's like, oh shit, Long threw himself in front of him, and so you just see the gold spread across his invisible body, and he just sort of gets rendered into existence as gold. And it's a very interesting visual because it's all gold. It looks like, you know, it's like an untextured, like, you know.
Yeah, it looks basic as shit. But
yeah, but the idea behind it is cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and plus, you know, it falling out of the sky and, you know, landing at the sea floor, like, you know, and finally, you know, and because that leads to like the moment of the movie where it's like, yeah, Long didn't get back into heaven because he completed the 10 Masters, because he didn't give his last wish to Din. It was, he learned the value of human life, and he actually sacrificed himself to save somebody. And,
that's what he was really trying to. That's what he was really supposed to do.
Yeah. Then of course he gives up on being, you know, he gives up on heaven and all that stuff just to go back because he
fucking has a like fucking almost like cusses out a god.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to go hit yet. Yeah, he willingly goes back into slavery, just so this kid he connected with, he gets his last wish, which he, you know, uses it benevolently, you know, saves the life of his girlfriend's dad.
Yeah.
Who was kind of the cause of all this to begin with, but, you know, but
that's the other thing, too, is that everything has a very good reason. It's like, you know, Lena's dad is the one that has sent these henchmen after this teapot because he's heard the legends that, you know, it contains a wish dragon. You get all these wishes. The reason why he's even trying to do all this in the first place is because he wants to preserve the life that he's carved out for him and his daughter.
In his nondescript company. Yeah.
And it's like, you know, because he's going bankrupt and like, you know, he's going to lose all this. And like, you know, it's a good enough reason for it. Like, you know, but, you know, by then, you know, it's kind of, you know, the moral of it being like, you know, you don't need, you just need to be there for your family. You don't need like, you know, all this, you know, that's, you know, whatever that, you know, I know that moral doesn't necessarily apply to, you know, everyone. I get the idea behind it, but like, you know, it'd be like, you know, if the reason why Jafar wanted the genie's lamp was to save his daughter from like cancer or something, like
then I kind of understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, like the reason, like the fact that they give these motivations to these characters, even though it is very clearly based on story where they don't do that, I feel like is difference enough to warrant it being like, yeah, okay, it's a modern interpretation of Aladdin, but also it's China, it's, you know, it's set in China and it's a modernization of it. It's like, you know, okay, that's fine. I enjoyed the movie. Like you said, it's not something that I would say is like, you know, it's a classic or anything. I feel like if you have Netflix and, you know, I feel like your kids might enjoy it. You know, it's a very fun movie. The stuff with Long
is definitely a for kids movie.
Yeah, the stuff with Long is, very fun to watch. As being like, big noodle dragon is very, lovingly animated. Like,
I just want to say that the moral that they try to get across in this movie immediately falls flat because of what happens at the very end.
Right.
Because the dad learns that it's better to just have a simple life and have human connections. And what does he immediately do? He tries to franchise that feeling.
As long as it's the one location, it's fine.
My wife is the one that really brought that to my attention. Like, yeah, he goes back to Din and his mom's little dingy apartment the little complex they used to live in, and he has his first home cooked meal for the first time in who knows how long. He's like, "This is the best soup I ever had." Immediately, smash cuts to them having a restaurant together.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so close.
Almost.
If you just cut it there of them to just having a meal together, that would have been, just fine. But all right, whatever.
Listen, it's fine. Lena's dad will die one day and get sent back as a wish dragon and learn the value of human life.
Yeah, probably. Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, all I can really say about this is it was fine. It was all right. It's harmless. If you've got kids and you need something to kill an hour and a half, there's worse things you could have them watch. And look, they can watch something about China and Chinese myth and be cultured a little bit, I guess.
Well, I mean,
culture your kids, damn it.
I would say that you'd probably get more culture appreciation from watching Over the Moon, which does deal with a lot of legit folklore and mythology and stuff.
But you also get a little bit from this, so
yeah,
watch both of them.
Yeah, I mean, like you said,
I think they might make a good double feature. If you're in the mood for some Chinese myth animation,
like I was saying earlier, it could be pandering or whatever, but the fact that there are movies coming out that do represent it's a predominantly Asian production and cast and aesthetic and folklore and all that stuff. It's cool to see. So I would say they're still worth it.
I said it was pandering. I didn't say it was a bad thing.
Yeah. As far as
I'm very much for getting to see other countries perspectives and getting to hear what their myths are.
Even if they're what you said, even if they're a white bread version of it,
right? I've really enjoyed Cartoon Saloon's movies because they really show off Irish myths, so that's been really nice. And then obviously a lot of Japanese media goes into Japanese myth, and we get a lot more animation out of China that we're finally really getting to see what their mythology is about. So just gonna get to learn about that kind of stuff. It can be interesting. So
yeah,
I'm all for it. Just there's just varying degrees of quality, I guess.
I will say that to me, Wish Dragon was a fun watch, and I would definitely recommend it if you've got Netflix already and you're wanting to kind of expand your animation palette, I guess, as far as
yeah. Well, I think that'll about do it for this week. Thank you all for listening. What would you do with a wish dragon?
You let us know in the comments.
I'd probably just wish for my debts to be done. That'd be cool.
Yeah, probably.
It'd wreck the economy, but fuck it.
I mean, if it's just your debts.
That's the thing. He wishes for a big pile of gold. You try to introduce that much gold into the economy, China's GDP is just sunk immediately.
Yeah.
Anyway, talked about economics here. Yep. Everybody, thank you for listening. Stay safe. We'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. You can find all the links to our social media pages in the episode description. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and join our Discord. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. The Ink and Paint Club is happy to be part of the Geekly Grind Podcast Network. We'll see you next time.